Hi, I'm Gary, welcome to my channel and welcome back if you've been here before. Today I'm looking at ICM's colossal Nakhon Phanom base set in 1/48 scale. Now if you like the show, do please remember to subscribe, it doesn't cost you anything, and if you hit the bell you'll be notified of all my future content. Don't forget also, anything you see here, give it the old thumbs up on the like button below. Well, let's get on with a look at this kit. This boxing brings together several existing ICM products. There is the B-26K Counter Invader from 2021, the Cessna O2 Skymaster from 2020, the US Pilots and Ground Crew figure set from 2021. From the same year is this US Armament set, and finally this 2024 set of M8A1 steel decking. Let's have a look at the box itself. The cover art shows the B-26K in the foreground with the crew figures and the O2 in the background, all sitting on the metal M8 planking. The product code for this set is DS4804. Now on one of the long sides is this panel listing the contents. As you can see, there are 196 parts for the O2, 344 parts for the B-26K, 88 parts for the armament, 38 parts for the personnel figures, and 128 parts for the matting, for a total of 794 parts, not all of which you'll use, of course. There are two optional paint sets suggested for this release, each containing 5 colours and varnish in 12ml pots, suitable for brushing or, when diluted, for airbrushing. The first is a set for the B-26K. This comprises US dark green, tan earth, extra dark green, black and silver with a pot of satin varnish. The other is a set for helicopter pilots of the Vietnam era. This contains middle stone, British khaki, black, US dark green and 4BO green, along with some matte varnish. Each set retails at about £6. Okay, let's have a look in the box here. The box is huge, I have to say, and it takes a little bit of getting off it. Lid comes straight up. As normal on ICM boxes, the lid is like a high gloss wrap for this quite substantial and very, very strong cardboard box. Inside here we have a bag of frames for the Cessna O2. We have 2 bags of frames, I guess, for the B-26 Counter Invader. We have a bag of weapons. We have a bag of crew figures. We have a couple of bags of the M8 steel matting. We have the Counter Invader instructions. We have the armament instructions separately. We have a little sheet about the ICM paints. We have the instructions to the crew figures, we have instructions to the landing mats, and we have the instructions for the O2 Skymaster. All of these bits we'll have a closer look at now. Okay, this is frame A. And for this kit, we're just going to use these 2 bits here, the tail planes. These are not being used on this particular version of the aircraft. Okay, frame B, and we are going to use the rudders, the elevators here. I'm not going to use these parts, I'm going to use these parts. We are going to use these little bits here. There's a lot of redundant plastic in this kit, I have to say. Frame C, and again, we're not using the wings here, we're not using these Bombay doors, we are using these nacelles and these rear bulkheads for the engine nacelles or the undercarriage bay. There are 2 frames D for Delta. We are not using the propellers, not using these parts here, not using any of these parts, not using these bombs, not using these bits here, not using these guns, not using that gun and these bits. The rest of the stuff we are using. Then frame E, again there's a lot of redundant parts here, these bits of the cockpit area are not being used. These bits are not being used. These are not being used. These are not being used. Half of these aren't as well. And this is frame H. Now this includes a lot of the parts that replacing the parts we're not using from other frames, basically. So all of this frame's being used: the 2 fuselage halves, the rudder, cockpit floor, wheels, and so on. Frame J, again, in full employment. This is the cockpit instrument panel, parts of the interior, that's wings, of course, and engine nacelle parts, or engine shrouds at the front. And frame K, another wing, the different bomb bay doors, so the little bits and pieces of structure on instruments and radios and whatever, and the squared off props as well for this aircraft. And then finally frame L, these are the weapons pylons, things like the control wheel, rudder pedals, tiny little bits and pieces from around the interior and exterior of the aircraft. One frame we do still have to do is frame G here, which of course are all the transparent parts. This one, I believe, is one we're using. We're not using this or those. So we're using this one. Get the frame way around. Yeah, we're using these two parts here. Some of the lights along here as well. And if we have a bit of a closer look at the plastic, it's very nice. It's good ICM plastic at the moment. You can see the panel lines are pretty well scribed. The rivets are pretty nice as well. Very clean moulding as usual. Slightly on the undercut, the gates here, as you can see. Oh, that one's not actually. That's not. That's interesting. That's a straight onto the rudder or fin. That's going to be interesting. Some of these parts are sort of very nicely deep moulded, like these wheel hubs. Look really nice, really nice. I like that. Interior looks okay as well. It's crisply moulded. There's no major issues with ejector marks because they tend to be more set into the plastic here. So if anything, you're going to have to fill it rather than grind it down if you need to. I'm not entirely sure you will need to a lot of this stuff. That's the cockpit floor area there. And it all looks quite amenable to a bit of weathering and a bit of picking up. I like the way that these vortex generators here actually do alternate up and down, so that's really cute. That's a nice bit of attention to detail here. Wings as well, nicely moulded. You'll notice that there's a difference on the strengthening, I guess they're strengthening bars at the top here, on the top of here, these long bars, they've got rivets that sit proud, whereas other parts of the wing have rivets that are recessed. So someone's taken the bother to find out which is which and then reproduce them, which is kind of a nice touch of detail, I think. Again, they look nice, crisp, clean molds. These are probably slightly newer because these would be for the K version, which they would have come out later because, of course, we've seen on the original plastic frames that a lot of it's not used, so they'd have been older molds, and these would have come out a little bit later. But you know what, they look okay. There's no real worries. There's a little bit of sort of tide marking here on these flows in here for the plastic, but nothing terrible, and that's on the interior anyway. On the outside, it's barely noticeable. If we have a look at some of the much finer details, this is our 0.5mm pencil lead. As usual, you can see all the spaces of the instrument. These are all decals. You could dry brush those and paint those in as well if you liked, I suppose. Shouldn't be, it would actually, no, I was going to say, shouldn't be too difficult. It would be quite the job to do that, but it's not impossible. They're raised just enough that you can dry brush those, I'm sure. I'll stick with the decals or maybe an aftermarket instrument panel. The covers for the gearbox just behind the propeller. Very nice. All those rivets and bolts are really nicely shown, I think. Nice and cleanly cast. Again, here's the side, but it's the throttle panel there, one of the side panels. They're all very nicely made. There's no flash that I can see at all. There shouldn't really be because it's quite a new mold, but yeah, you do see some horrors on new molds these days. That's another part of the engine gearbox for the front. Again, nice and cleanly molded. And then if we look at some of the really small parts, you can see that, again, nice and clean. There's not terrible mold lines on any of this. That would be interesting to take off the frame, however. These are the weapon pylons for the K version. I don't know what these are. I'll find out what these are at some point, no doubt, during the build. But there they are, very, very small and very nicely molded. This will be a pain to get off the frame. But otherwise, that's like a fuse box, circuit breakers, whatever. I guess maybe a map box, something like that. Yeah, all seems all very nicely molded, as I say. Very clean. No flash to speak of. Jolly good. Now on to the Skymaster now, and it's a considerably simpler story. So this is frame A, wing parts, the tail booms, tail, elevator, flaps here, the propellers. There's a sort of vestigial kind of engine there. It's a horizontal flat 6 engine at each end, of course. Yeah, that's frame A. Then there's frame B, the fuselage halves, the top of the wing, the cabin area, some weapons, even some sidearms, or rifles anyway, I should say, rather than sidearms. A couple of M16s. Basically everything else for the build. Of course, the other part that comes here are the transparent parts, all the windows, and this is frame C. And looking at the plastic, you know, the moulding's quite nice. There's little bits of, no, actually, no, it's just a little shaving. That's nothing important. The panel lines, yep, they're fine. They'll be easy to pick out. They're not too deep, not almost invisible either. There's no major rivets there, but then I don't think there were on these things. I think they're basically sort of flush riveted at the factory because they were made by Cessna and they used to make lovely planes like that. Yeah, generally very good. Plastic looks clean. It's very, you know, it's the same plastic obviously because it's the same recent moulding. There's a bit of a flow line thing going on there, but nothing that can't be got rid of. It'll probably mostly disappear in the priming. Try and keep the focus. This is actually really close to the camera because it's quite small. So again, rivet lines, fasteners in there. Everything looks okay to me. There's a detail here in the instrument panel. Looks fine. Again, it's going to be something that you can dry brush and paint in if you really, really want to do that. But I'm sure I can get the decals to sit into these without too much problem. Especially we won't have the doors open, so we'll be looking through polystyrene anyway at them. But everything looks nice and tidy. As I said earlier, there's a couple of personal weapons, a couple of M16s, which, you know, maybe they could have been a little bit better moulded, perhaps. But they're pretty incidental to this aircraft. There's the weapon store, the control column. Control column's looks like it's got just a hint of a mould line on it. But other than that, everything's, yeah, pretty good. Minigun pods or something. Yeah, it looks fine. It looks fine. Very much what I expect from ICM actually these days, to be honest with you. With the pack of American weapons, there's 2 frames of each. This is frame W1, and there's lots of all sorts of tubes and there's pylon, various rocket weapons and airdropped weapons, a whole assortment of things. And frame W2 is much of the same. Bombs, different types of tails for bombs, whether they're the retarded ones or not. There's these are tops of rockets that stick out the front of these rocket carriers here. There's other sort of front and back of another size of rocket in the front and back of yet another side of rocket pod. They did like their rocket pods at the time, and I don't blame them actually. Very efficient things in those, especially for like things like marking, smoke marking and things like that. And then you've got obviously the weapons, bombs of various descriptions and sizes. It's probably best if we have a look at these when we've got the instructions up, because then you can see what they all make. Most important thing is the moulding on these is all very fine. It's all very nice, very sharp, very clean. No flash to speak of. All of these should go together to make weapons very, very easily. Then there's a frame of the air and crew figures. There are 2 air crew figures and 3 ground crew figures. So we have pretty much pilot here, and you've got bone dome you can put together for him if you wish. There's another figure. Which one is it? I think it's this one. That's a technician, because he's just got his dog tags hanging out over there, and an aviator would never do that, of course. Let's see. Oh, this guy's got his his flying suit thing on top there, and then the rest are ground crew, technicians, and the like. And to be honest, you really pretty much can't go wrong with ICM figures at the moment. These are in 1/48 in polystyrene, and I think they are really nice. They're really sharp, though, guys. Dog tags and his chain around his neck. Very nicely moulded faces, really easy to paint. Lots and lots of detail everywhere like this. Guess that's a parachute. Even over here we have a sidearm and a survival knife. It's quite cute. And over here one of the technicians is taking a screwdriver to something to sort it out. Really nicely moulded, no flash at all anywhere. The mould marks are minimal, actually, fairly minimal. I think most places you're going to see them are likely to be on legs. If I can see if we can see some there. It's difficult with this autofocus. There we go. There's a little bit of seam marking on there, but that's really easy to get rid of. Really easy to get rid of. Yeah, very lovely figures as usual from ICM. And then finally the M8 matting, the steel matting. You get 2 packs. Each pack contains 4 of these frames, and as you can see, they just have tongue and groove basically fitting, and you can make them pretty much whatever size you like. There's 8 of these frames because you've got 2 aircraft to put on them, so it's got plenty of room for your diorama. The decals for the B-26K, there's not much to it, to be honest with you. There's a lovely lack of stencils from this aircraft. Normally by Vietnam, these things are covered in stencils. Fortunately not the B-26K. You have walkways and markings for walkways for different types of camouflage. You have the stars and bars, of course. You have a bit of nose art and some text. Of course, you have the instrument panel and some ID marks. Generally, there's really not a lot to these. We can have a look at the instrument decals here. Here's our 0.5mm pencil for comparison. Yeah, turn and slip indicators, nice. Compass is okay. Artificial horizon looks okay. Engines look alright. They're not bad, actually, not bad. Again, when they're stuck inside a cockpit with a load of glass on top, you're not going to notice the difference really, but they're good enough. They're good enough if you really, really want ultimate high end and you're going to have panels open and stuff like that, then obviously you're going to go aftermarket. But these, I think, are printed sharply enough and cleanly enough for most uses. The text is, it's readable. That's what probably, just over half, about 0.6, 0.7 mil tall. They're very readable. The propeller decals are okay. They look all right. The blacks, as usual, the blacks are the sharpest part of this by a long, long way. But that's quite often the way. Here, the stars and bars, they're looking good. Actually looking good. Yellows, again, look just slightly softer, but they do. Yellow is a difficult colour to print nicely. And here, this little, I guess, Roadrunner on a bomb. Not the greatest colour green, I have to say. But, it looks all right. It looks okay. Not the sharpest decals in the world, or the densest in colour, but they'll do. They'll do very nicely, I think. With the Skymaster, if anything, there tends to be, it's a much smaller plane, but there's a lot more decals going on. There's lots of stencils and things like that on there. I would say the yellow and the red, the quality of the colours is not as nice as on the B-26K. I don't know if they went to a different printer, because the O2 kit is a little bit earlier than the B-26 kit. Whether they went to a new printer, whether they just designed them differently, I don't know. But the yellow looks just a little bit washed out. Red, again, a little washy. Not as crisp and clean as the previous decals. Okay, so we start off with the instrument decals, and they're okay. Sun and bank indicator, compass. They look okay. They're not as fine as some other ones. These mission markings are all right. They're not bad. These are beginning to look a little soft and not absolutely crisp, but these are all right. I mean, look at, that's okay. And there's a standard 0.5mm pencil lead there to compare with. The reds are all right. I just find these reds a little bit thin, and this yellow in particular I find quite thin, not quite sort of golden rich yellow that I'm used to seeing. But these are all very nice. They're pretty good. Not the best, but again, not the greatest, because that would be cartograph or something like that. But they're pretty good. Certainly 1/48th, I think they'll be fine. The Armament Pack comes with its own decal sheet as well. Obviously, yellow stripes for live rounds, things like that. All the data is either in black or in yellow, depending on the colour of the ordnance, and there's a few safety warning things and stuff like that. Generally, the yellows look a little thin, but when they go on the typically green of the ordnance, they actually don't look too bad at all. So it's a little bit deceptive on this strangely blue backing paper. But, they are what they are, and they make the weapons look good because they give them that sort of edge of accuracy with all the stencils. The weapons and armament decals, they're all right. They're not too bad. That's our 0.5mm pencil lead by comparison. These are not too bad. Actually, not too bad. These are, well, it's very difficult to say if they're going to be readable, because against this sort of mottled blue background, they're a little difficult to see anyway. I suspect these ones won't be that readable. The black ones aren't too bad, actually. And the yellow just won't show up as well. Registration is not bad. There's a slight hint of misregistering with these, not being absolutely smack in the middle of the white, but that's going to be a very, very small difference. You're really not going to know that once it's on a weapon dangling from the underside of a B-26, whatever. So again, they add a sense of accuracy and a sense of, sense of accuracy and a sense of detail, even if it may not be 100% readable. But again, at 1/48th on a bomb, how readable does that really need to be? So here's the instruction sheet for the B-26K Counter Invader. You'll notice the box art is different. That's because this comes from the standalone kit. You have here a bit of a description about the aircraft and some basic specifications here in English and in Ukrainian. The color callouts for the kit are here. The color numbers here are all for the ICM color range. You can go online and find a conversion to other brands as well. And there's a translation of all the icons here as well. As we open up, we see the frame maps and the vast amount of red shading that tells you things that you aren't using that have been supplied. And then the rest of the frames are things that replace all those bits that are not supplied. So that's pretty cool. And then the instructions themselves are very straightforward. I've always found them very easy to use. If there's anything in here that you're not 100% certain where things go, where they line up or something like that, you can get on YouTube, you can find there's a B-26K build sequence derived from the CAD for the original kits. So it's really, really useful because sometimes they'll sort of flip a part over and show exactly where it fits in, whereas they don't necessarily do that in the instructions. That's well worth checking out on the ICM website. All the way through, these bits in red boxes tell you colours. The round boxes with numbers refers to a previous step. So here it says 2, and it's step 2. The other side of the aircraft will be step 3. And then parts are just plain lettered. I've always, as I say, found these to be pretty straightforward. There's a decal callouts are here. Here it's obviously for the instrument panel. If I were making this, the only thing I would do slightly differently is I would probably build the engine nacelles onto the wings before pushing, and then do all of finish the fuselage as much as I can, and then do all of the camouflage, and then put the wings on towards the end, and then put the gear in and things like that. But that's just me. You can, of course, follow their instructions to the letter, and that will be as well. If you do. So again, you can put different bombays and stuff on. There's different tops here. You can put all of those on, mask them, and spray them up. The reason why I say about that is getting the underside of the camouflage and the top of the camouflage and the side of the aircraft, and so it can be a bit tricky sometimes when the wing's actually already glued on. If you can do it separately, then just slide the wings into place and bond them in. That would be ideal. Undercarriage here, not massively complex. Engines, I've built a lot of these and they do go together so nice. They just line up really, really well. They're always quite fun to do and they do sit on nicely. Oh yeah, the difference here is going to be here you've got a template part for the exhaust stacks to go around the edge here before they go onto the wing. Again, I'd guess you're going to be painting the engine and doing all of the engine work before it goes, painting it before it goes on. This will all be painted and ready before this goes on. And likewise the engine nacelles, I would have thought cooling fins rather, radiator cooling. Pretty much straightforward, really. At the back here, towards the end, we have a suggested mix of weapons for the aircraft, what pylons they go on as well. We have also the templates for the masks for the canopy and various other bits and pieces of transparency. And then we have the schemes. We have here an aircraft of 609th Special Operations Squadron in 1969. This is Scheme 3 is also that's 609th Squadron 1969, another aircraft. Scheme B is an aircraft at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base in 1970. And on the back, an aircraft of a first Special Operations wing in the late 1960s. So 4 schemes to choose from. They all look pretty much the same, but the markings are obviously different. So that's the B-26K. The Cessna 028 Sky Master Kit. Again here the box art is for the standalone kit of the aircraft, not of this particular boxing. Again, very brief description of the aircraft and some technical specs in English and in Ukrainian. The colour callouts again in ICM's own colours, and the icons are translated here as well. As you can see on the inside, there's a frame map, and there's only a handful, like 2 or 3, in fact 3 parts here that you're not using for this particular aircraft. And again, step-by-step instructions. I find them really, really easy to use. There's a engine top we saw earlier. Just I think because you can probably see the top of the engine through behind the propeller at the front end. Everything is very, very straightforward, very easy layout here. There's no madness, there's no difficulty. I don't think it's a particularly difficult kit. Haven't made it yet, of course, but there we go. Some drill outs you have to do here for the weapons, smoke markers and things like that. Yeah, it's a fairly straightforward looking build, I have to say. Some guns and some rockets and things like that can go on there if you wish. There's the mask templates for the various transparent parts if you want them, if you can use them. And then there's the markings guide. This is scheme A here. Interestingly, they haven't actually specified what these are, what aircraft they are, which is quite strange. What squadron or anything. Normally they put that in. There's scheme B. It's very similar. And scheme C. And scheme D, dark one. Oh, very nice. The weapons pack comes in a simple sheet. Most of this is so straightforward. There's two copies of each of these 2 frames, and then the weapons go together relatively simply. LAU 10A rocket launcher, LAU 69A rockets, LAU 68. There's the BLU 23 and 27, the Mark 77 bomb. It's another rocket launcher, SUU 14A, I believe. Snake Eye retarded weapons, Mark 82 Snake Eyes low drag weapons. Then the weapons pylons and the Mark 82 low drag as well. And then on the back are the colours and the decal layouts. And the colours have colour callouts here with ICM's own numbers again. The pilots and ground crew frame has its own instruction sheet. Just a picture of the frame, and then colour callouts. On this occasion you have the ICM numbers, but you also have equivalent in Revell and in Tamiya, which is nice. They don't have instructions as such. What they have are these drawings of what the completed figures look like. So the numbers here refer to the parts on the frame, and the letters refer to the colour callouts. I find them fairly easy to go together. I mean, the figures go together very easily anyway. They're very sort of straightforward about how things happen, so you really are not going to have too much of an issue with these. And last but by no means least, the M8A1 landing map. Remember, we've got 8 sections of this in total. There's only one colour, they just say paint them gunmetal. And in the back here, they show you ideally how they would fit together to form the rectangular sheets. They can also be expanded in other directions, which is handy because you've actually got 2 packs of these. And that gives us an idea of the size of one of the packs with the B-26 sitting on top of it. There is quite the monster of a set, but I'm sure would look amazing with some work on the decking. If you've liked the show, do please remember to subscribe. It's free, and if you hit the bell, you'll be notified of all my future content. And please do hit the like button below, because every like counts. Thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you again soon. Take good care now and goodbye.